It started with something small, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. That's when I knew. Not for sure, but in my gut. And when I hired a private investigator, I learned that sometimes, the truth hurts more than the lie ever could. It was the smallest of details that began to gnaw at him. Quiet, almost imperceptible, yet deeply unsettling. His wife, Julia, had always been a creature of habit, precise, organized, with little room for change. Yet over the past few months, things had begun to shift in ways he couldn't ignore. The late nights at work became more frequent. Her phone calls, once casual, now came with a guarded tone, and when he tried to ask, she'd dismiss it with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the subtle changes, those small moments that seemed out of place, that made him wonder, was there something more? John had always been a man of unwavering trust. His relationship with Julia had been the anchor of his life. They had built a family together, weathered years of challenges, and shared dreams for the future. But trust, like the foundation of a house, could only take so much strain before it started to crack. And cracks had begun to appear. His mind, once filled with comfort and confidence, now swirled with doubt. Could his wife, the woman he'd devoted his life to, really be hiding something from him? Was she betraying him? He knew better than to let his paranoia run wild, but as the days went by, he found himself scrutinizing every little detail. A forgotten text message left open on the kitchen counter. A strange name in her contacts. The way her eyes would dart away when he asked the simplest of questions. It was all too much. He couldn't live in this limbo, unable to confirm or deny his fears. Something had to be done. The idea of hiring a private investigator hit him one night, as he sat alone in the dim light of the living room, staring at the phone in his hand. The idea was ludicrous. He wasn't the type of person to spy on his spouse. He wasn't someone who would go to such extreme measures. But the doubts continued to build, a mountain of suspicion growing taller with each passing day. Could he afford to live in ignorance, or was it better to face the truth, however painful it might be? The decision came swiftly after that. He made the call to the investigator, John Michaels, and just like that, his quiet, stable world began to crumble. The first meeting was cold and clinical. No judgment, no empathy, just facts. Michaels promised to get the answers he needed, but John had no idea how much it would cost him emotionally. He knew that discovering the truth would be painful, but nothing could have prepared him for the aftermath. In that moment, as he handed over the retainer fee, John's heart raced with fear. What if he was wrong? What if it was all in his head? The thought made him sick, but the gnawing suspicion wouldn't go away. He needed to know. For better or for worse, he needed the truth. His mind raced with the possibilities. Could he handle it if the investigator uncovered something he couldn't undo? The consequences of knowing could be far-reaching, not just for his marriage but for his children, his future. And yet, there was no turning back. Once the truth was out, it would change everything. His life, his family, everything he had believed in would never be the same. With the decision made, John felt a strange mix of dread and relief. He would know the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. And yet, deep inside, he couldn't help but hope that he was wrong, that this was all just his overactive imagination. But even as that hope flickered, a small part of him knew he wasn't wrong. The pieces had started to fit together, and the reality he feared was quickly becoming inevitable. The investigation was set in motion. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew that the next few days, weeks, perhaps even months, would be the hardest of his life. Every moment would bring him closer to an answer, and every moment would be filled with anxiety, fear, and the crushing weight of uncertainty. As he sat back in his chair, staring at the phone in his hand, he tried to quiet his mind. But it was impossible. There was no turning back now. What came next would define everything. The truth, once discovered, would either heal or destroy him. The consequences of finding out would forever alter the course of his life. And so, with a deep breath, John braced himself for what was to come. The investigation had begun, and soon, he would learn the truth. But could he handle it? Would he still be able to trust again, even if his worst fears were realized? The answers, however painful, would be revealed soon enough. As the days passed, the weight of the situation hung over him, but he knew that no matter what, this journey was the only way forward. The truth would set him free, or it would destroy him. There was no other choice. And as John sat there, waiting for the inevitable, he wondered how long it would be before the truth came crashing down, forever altering the life he thought he knew. I had never imagined it would come to this. The house that had once felt like a home, full of warmth and comfort, was now just a place where everything felt wrong. Every inch of it, every corner, reminded me of the betrayal. I could still hear her laughter echoing through the halls, still see the smile she wore when she was pretending everything was fine. But now, all of it was gone, replaced by suspicion, resentment, and anger. It was as if a curtain had been ripped away, revealing the ugly truth underneath. I watched her, Jillian, standing in the doorway, trying to look unaffected by the situation. But I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to act tough, trying to pretend that everything was okay, but I knew her too well. She was caught, and she knew it. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, even if it didn't make the pain go away. This was the woman I had once called my best friend. The one I had trusted with my life. And she had thrown it all away for what? For Troy? For Mark? I didn't know anymore, and at this point, I didn't care. Sally was standing beside me, her arms crossed, her face a mask of disbelief. She had been quiet until now, but I could see the anger building inside her too. Jillian had betrayed not only me but also her, and now she was acting like it was no big deal. I wanted to scream at her, to make her understand the pain she had caused, but all I could manage was a bitter laugh. You can't move in, Jillian. This isn't your house, I said, my voice low, dripping with sarcasm. I was trying to hold it together, trying not to let her see how much it hurt. But the words slipped out anyway, and I watched as her face flushed red with embarrassment. She shifted uncomfortably, looking around the room as if trying to find something to say. Well, you can't be here either, she replied irritably, her tone defensive. I felt a sharp pang of anger. I had nothing left to lose, and she had lost the right to be in this house long ago. Maybe, I muttered, taking a deep breath. But that doesn't mean you can stay here either. It's time for you to leave, Jillian. And no, I won't wish you well. Not after everything you've done. There was a long silence. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the way she was trying to justify her actions. But it was too late for that. She had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her worm her way out of this one. Do you hate me that much? She asked, her voice softening for the first time. I stared at her for a moment, the weight of the question hitting me hard. Could I hate her? Could I really look at her and feel nothing but contempt after everything we had shared? It was hard to say. Part of me still wanted to care, still wanted to find some sliver of the person I used to know. But I couldn't. Not after she had destroyed everything. You seriously have the nerve to ask me that? I replied, my voice trembling with restrained fury. After everything you've done? You were my best friend, Jillian, and you destroyed it all. Jillian's face dropped, and I could see the guilt in her eyes, but it was too little, too late. It wasn't my idea, she whispered, almost as if she was trying to convince herself more than me. Mark and Troy thought it would be easier this way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think I'd fight for you? I shot back bitterly, shaking my head in disbelief. You've lost any right to my forgiveness. Any right to my trust. You've destroyed everything we had, Jillian. She looked down, her shoulders slumping in defeat. It was the first time I had seen her like this, broken, vulnerable. But it didn't change anything. Nothing would ever be the same. As I stood there, watching the woman who had once been my closest confidant crumble before me, I felt a strange emptiness inside. Not just because she had betrayed me, but because I had failed to see it coming. How had I missed the signs? The late nights, the unexplained absences, the change in her demeanor, all of it had been right there in front of me. I had been too blind to notice, too trusting in the person I thought I knew. But now, in this moment of clarity, I realized that I had been living in a dream, a false reality built on a foundation of lies. The truth was harsh, undeniable, and it hit me like a freight train. It wasn't just her betrayal that hurt, it was the fact that she had taken everything we had, everything I had, without a second thought. The friendship, the trust, the years we had spent together, she had thrown it all away as if it meant nothing. I turned away from her for a moment, my mind racing. This wasn't just about a broken marriage or a betrayed friendship. This was about the core of who I was, who I thought I was. Everything I had built, every belief I held about loyalty and love, was now shattered. How do you rebuild when the foundation has crumbled? How do you trust again when the person you thought you knew has turned out to be a stranger? Jillian's voice broke through my thoughts. Gregory, please, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned back to her, the anger bubbling up once again. Don't, I said firmly. Don't try to make this about me. You've already done enough damage. It's over. Her lips trembled as she tried to say something more, but I didn't want to hear it. I had given her every chance, every opportunity to come clean. But she had chosen to betray me, and now, there was no going back. She had to leave. You need to go, Jillian, I said, my voice cold. I don't want you here anymore. The finality in my voice must have been clear, because she didn't argue. She simply turned and walked out of the room, her footsteps echoing down the hall as she left. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway, the weight of the decision sinking in. As the door clicked shut behind her, I felt a strange sense of peace, a calm that had eluded me for so long. The storm was over. The truth had come to light, and it had left devastation in its wake. But I would survive. I had to. I turned toward the window, staring out at the world beyond. It was a new world, one that no longer held the illusions I had once clung to. But now, I had a chance to rebuild, to find a new path. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, and it certainly wouldn't be painless. But I had my children, my dignity, and most importantly, I had the strength to move forward. There was no turning back, but there was always a way forward. And that was what I would do. Move forward. As the silence enveloped the house, I knew one thing for certain, I would never let anyone take away my peace again. Not Jillian. Not anyone. It seems like you're requesting an expansion of a specific part of your story, with particular focus on the emotional fallout and psychological impact of betrayal. I'll write an extended passage based on your requirements, emphasizing feelings of anger, betrayal, and a resulting emotional and psychological turmoil. Here's an enriched version of the section, focusing on emotional depth and expanding on the psychological impact. The pain of betrayal, like a slow-burning fire, crept through every fiber of my being. What had once been a life full of love, companionship, and shared moments now felt like a cruel joke. I could hardly bring myself to look at the house, the very place where we had shared so many memories. What was once warm and inviting now felt cold and empty. Every corner of this place seemed haunted by ghosts of the past, reminders of laughter that now felt like a distant echo, a smile that had been nothing but an illusion. Linda's betrayal had poisoned every part of it, leaving me suffocating in a room filled with nothing but resentment, confusion, and a shattered sense of trust. I had always believed that our bond was unbreakable, that no matter the struggles, we would weather them together. But now, standing there, staring at Jillian, I realized how wrong I had been. The truth, which had been lurking in the shadows for so long, had finally come to light, and with it came the flood of emotions I had been desperately trying to suppress. The anger was the first to surface, a sharp, blinding rage that surged through me, making my hands tremble. How could she? How could Linda do this to me? How could someone I trusted so deeply betray me in such a cruel and unforgivable way? The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless, unable to process the enormity of it. And it wasn't just the affair itself that shattered me. It was the fact that she had hidden it from me for so long, pretending that everything was fine when the truth was festering beneath the surface, poisoning everything we had built together. But as the anger subsided, it was replaced by a deep, soul-crushing sadness. I had given so much to her, to us. My heart had been open, my trust had been given freely, and this was how it all ended. I felt like a fool, like I had been living in a fantasy, blind to the truth that everyone else seemed to know. The world I had built was crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. The sadness washed over me in waves, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. And then, there was the confusion. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? The late nights, the secrecy, the way she had withdrawn from me, I had seen the signs, but I had refused to believe them. I had made excuses for her, convinced myself that everything was fine, that I was just overthinking it. But now, looking back, it all made sense in the worst way possible. I had ignored my own instincts, trusting the lies she had spun for so long. It felt like a betrayal not just of her, but of myself. How could I have been so stupid, so trusting? As Jillian stood there, her eyes filled with guilt, the weight of the situation settled over me like a heavy fog. I had no words left for her. What could I possibly say? She had destroyed everything, our friendship, our marriage, the trust we had built over the years. And in that moment, I realized that there was nothing left to salvage. The person I had loved, the person I had thought I knew, was gone. In her place was someone who had chosen to betray me, to deceive me in the most intimate and hurtful way possible. But even as the anger, sadness, and confusion swirled within me, there was something else, a sense of violation, something deeply personal that went beyond the affair itself. It wasn't just the fact that Linda had been with someone else, it was the fact that she had kept this secret from me, that she had lied to my face, that she had betrayed my trust in the most intimate way. It was as if she had stolen a piece of my soul, a piece of who I was, and I didn't know how to get it back. I had been violated, not just emotionally, but mentally. And the hardest part was knowing that there was nothing I could do to undo it. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her feel the same pain that I was feeling. But all I could do was stand there, paralyzed by the enormity of it all. The silence between us was deafening. And in that silence, I realized that this was no longer just about the affair. It was about everything, the years we had spent together, the life we had built, the trust that had been shattered. It was about the broken pieces of my heart that I would never be able to put back together. And then, as if the emotional toll wasn't enough, the psychological impact began to set in. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Linda with him, her face twisted in a way that made me sick to my stomach. The thought of her with someone else was like a dagger to my chest, and I couldn't escape it. It wasn't just the image of her with another man, it was the betrayal, the lies, the secrecy. It was the years of my life I had spent trusting her, believing in her, only to have it all ripped away in an instant. The worst part was how it affected everything else. My relationship with my children, the foundation of my family, had been rocked to its core. How could I look them in the eyes, knowing what had happened? How could I explain to them that the mother they had trusted, the woman who had promised to love and protect us, had been hiding such a monstrous secret? It wasn't just my world that was falling apart, it was theirs too. And that was the hardest part to bear. As the days passed, I withdrew further into myself. I couldn't face anyone. I couldn't even face my own reflection. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone else, someone broken, someone unrecognizable. My self-worth, which had always been tied to my family and the life we had built, was now in ruins. Who was I without them? Who was I without Linda? The trust one had once taken for granted had been ripped away, and with it, so much of my identity. Trust, once shattered, is hard to rebuild. And now, every relationship I had, with my children, with friends, with myself, felt like it was built on quicksand. I questioned everything, the years of love, the promises made, the moments shared. What was real? What had been a lie? I couldn't tell anymore. The emotional and psychological toll of this betrayal was something I hadn't prepared for. I had thought the worst would be the discovery of the affair itself, but the true weight of it came afterward, when I was left alone to sift through the wreckage of my life. How do you rebuild when everything you thought you knew has been upended? How do you trust again when your heart has been so brutally broken? I didn't have the answers yet. But I knew one thing: I couldn't stay here. I couldn't let this define me. And with that thought, a flicker of hope ignited in me. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I had survived this. And somehow, in time, I would heal. This expanded version dives deeper into the psychological and emotional aftermath of betrayal, emphasizing the internal struggle and the impact on family dynamics. The journey of moving forward after a betrayal, especially one as deep as a partner's infidelity, is never straightforward. It's not a path that is filled with immediate peace or easy answers. For the protagonist, the decision to confront the truth, followed by the legal proceedings that tore apart his life, was only the beginning of a much longer, much harder process, the healing journey. There were days, particularly in the beginning, when the pain felt like it would never end. It wasn't just the shock of betrayal that hurt, though that was unbearable enough. It was the feeling of having wasted so much time, so much trust, on something that had never been real. He thought about the years that had been spent building his family, his life, only for it all to crumble because of the lies that had been hidden from him for so long. The images of Linda's infidelity haunted him, each memory of their time together now tainted with the truth he had learned. But even in the depth of his despair, there was a sense of quiet determination beginning to rise. The first step toward emotional healing was acceptance. As he sat in the quiet of his house, a space that had once been filled with warmth and laughter, he came to understand that he had to let go of the fantasy of what he thought his life was.